in my experience, it's not something that we just go in once and we do. For me, it's been a life, like years of loving and reparenting that little girl inside. We've all come here with a divine purpose, traveling on a stream of cosmic dust from the stars into our mother's wombs, born into this precious life. It is no accident that you are here, my love, on earth, in this moment, in this body. You are here longing to find your place, to align with your purpose, to embody your passions and to live into the dreams of your heart. Yet so often we get caught, suspended in the tangle of life, not able to move forward, not able to find solace and comfort in a world that has forgotten the truth of our existence. As we begin to remember, as we peel back the layers, as we come together to uncover our unique gifts and reconnect with our authentic selves, we are able to see another way of being, a new possibility, a different life waiting to be lived. I have experienced on this complicated and wild journey of life that when we connect with the story of our soul, it will show us the magic of this life that we have been missing. It will open a window into the very heart of who we truly are, of who we came here to be, and gives us answers to our ever-asking why. Hello, my loves. As always, just so grateful to be here with you today on this journey as we dive deep into all things spiritual, energetic, everything human, everything divine, everything that is us, right? The authenticness, the uniqueness, and the incredibleness that makes up our existence. As you know, one of the things that I talk about a lot on this podcast is really being in devotion to the things that you love. And so in devotion to the things that I love, I am going to be traveling quite a bit in August between camping and trips with my family and kids. And so we have decided to choose a handful of our favorite episodes from the earlier days in the podcast and rerun them for you for the month of August as I will be out and about doing other things I love. So these are special episodes, ones that really touch the hearts of our listeners and of myself, and really were significant in the lives of the guests. So some of you may have heard them before. They might be new to some of you. Wherever you're listening from, just remember there's always something deeper, right? There's always another layer that we can go with information, with our healing, with what's happening to us. And there's always something new to find if we're willing to look. Before we dive into our episode, I want to offer into our sacred space and onto our shared altar about the crucible. And I know so many of you listening are wanting to dive deeper into your spiritual journey, into developing your intuition, into healing, right? These parts of us, and not just from mental, emotional places, but also from the energetic realm. And the Crucible wants to offer a place for this to happen. So we will be starting in September under the full moon and coming together, right, as a community, as a group of women that are devoted to a better world and a better life for us all. And we know that by living our own truth and by bringing our whole self, our full self to the world is the way that we create change. I would love to be with you in this space and really make a difference, really dive into all the stopping places, all the things that we hide from, all the reasons we tell ourselves why we can't do it now and we need to wait for later. All the ways we tell ourselves we're not ready, we're not good enough, we don't have enough time, we have this to do, I'll do it once that is done. all of that, right, just keeps us from what we love. And the beautiful thing about all that is that there's so much to harvest in that resistance. So I invite you to take a deep breath and to follow your heart. Do the thing you really would love. There's a link in the show notes. You can also find out more at sarahnoble.com/crucible. I'd love to see you there and get to know you more. I love you. Hi, Corissa. Welcome to the podcast. How can I help you today?
Hi, Sarah. So I've been feeling like there's something big that's begging me to heal within me, that I've been very busy, distracted, and just kind of busy with life. And I feel like I haven't really had the time to sit with it to kind of understand what may be coming up for me. It feels like it's something around like my teenage years, and I feel like it's kind of holding me back in some way. And I was just wondering if you could tap into that.
Yeah. So what I track in your body is your cervix closing down as you're speaking, like that root chakra, that safety, and the second chakra area, sort of that younger developmental years, preteen years. And when I was feeling into you before the call, some of the images you showed me were a cross, like a religious cross. And you showed me yourself looking through a keyhole and the sensation of a broken heart.
Mm.
And so as I offer all that to you, what comes forward for you?
Yeah, a couple of things. So my parents got divorced when I was 13. And I think that a big part of my heart definitely broke at that point. I kind of felt like my foundation had been rocked. And within, I would say like a couple years or so is when I started dating and getting very interested in boys. And I feel like potentially it's almost like I never healed that heartbreak almost from my parents' marriage, and then just sort of kept seeking something to fill that hole. And it was in these relationships with boys.
Yeah. Have you done work around that?
I've done some work around it. Yes.
Okay. Are you in a relationship currently?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm married.
Okay.
And I did grow up Catholic. So that was a big part of my upbringing. And there was definitely a lot of shame around, your body and sexuality and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like there's a part of me that needs to reconcile some sort of aspect there around the shame.
Yeah. How does that show up in your marriage today?
So my marriage is not actually going very well. We don't really have an intimate relationship like that. And part of it is because some of our relationship, there was some coercion and definitely some manipulation where he felt he needed the physical aspect to be close emotionally. And I needed the opposite. I needed the emotional connection to have the physical. And so we basically had a breakdown in our marriage a couple of years ago, and we've been trying to work on it. And there have been moments where I've basically said I was done, and he's tried, and then I've tried, and it's just don't know really where it's going at this point.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty and vulnerability with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're very much showing me this lower part of your body. What's your relationship like with your uterus and your ovaries? How are your cycles? Do you have any complications, pain, those kind of things?
So interestingly enough, my cycle has typically been very regular. And then, now I'm kind of like approaching perimenopause, and it's been a little bit all over the place. And so actually I'm on my first day today after 45 days of not having my period. And I am definitely feeling a lot of discomfort today specifically. And there's a little bit around kind of like, oh no, what does this mean for me? How does this change who I am in a way that, I can't rely on the predictability of, my monthly menstruation, which, for a while, I think was something that was looked on as more of a burden and a inconvenience. And in the last few years, it's been more of I'm grateful that I get to have this monthly process where I get to shed physically along with any kind of emotional layers or anything that's no longer serving me at the same time. I've looked at it as more of a cleansing period. So my relationship with it has definitely shifted.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So, where I'm tracking back is with this shame, right? This
Mhm.
part of you that maybe made choices and decisions that you haven't reconciled with, and how that's threading through your life today. Because as you say, right, there's something in there for you. As you've explored it, what do you know about this part of you or this time in your life, or where have you landed in the work that you've done?
So for me, I don't know how familiar you are with human design, but I am a fourth line profile. And for me, what that means is I don't move from one foundation until I have the next one sort of set up before I'll take the leap, because that's what gives me security. And for me, the way that's translated in my relationships is in the past, my younger years when I was, dating and single, I wouldn't kind of end one relationship until I had something else to look to or someone else to look to. It was very much like this trapezing from one relationship to the next. And I definitely had a time period in my mid to late 20s where I wasn't really dating any one person. I was primarily single, but I don't know that I ever healed from a lot of my past relationships that had been very emotionally painful for me. I think it caused me to shut down my emotions. I never really felt safe to be myself. I always felt I had to be whoever the other person wanted me to be so that I would feel accepted and approved and loved. And that's been a lot of my healing work the last, 4 years, I would say, is working on, just the self-love aspect of loving myself enough and feeling safe enough to be me without seeking someone else's approval or without seeking out someone else's love, and being able to provide that for myself.
How do you feel you're doing with that, like providing that love for yourself?
I think I'm doing a pretty good job of it, although I do catch myself at times just physically being like, oh, I wish I didn't eat that yesterday, or like I should have worked out longer today, or I missed my workout and now I feel terrible, right? And I'm kind of judging my body. It usually comes down more to my body because I feel like who I am as a person, I'm very happy with. Like I do love who I am. It's just I still find myself having to battle that inner critic from a physical standpoint, but my physical body.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you keep pulling me back to this root chakra cervix area of, it's like this sense of insecurity, not trusting, like a foundation that is not secure. Like I see almost like a fulcrum point, like you've built your foundation on top of fulcrum. So it's very like you've got to keep everything very structured,
Mm-hmm.
because any slight tipping, you're going to fall off that foundation.
Mm.
What in your healing and stuff have you done with like your little girl and that girl whose heart was broken by her parents' divorce?
Gone back into meditation and spoken with her and tried to reassure her.
Okay.
And I don't know that I've done a great job of doing the reparenting.
That's okay. It's a big job. I mean, parenting in any realm is. It's not, in my experience, it's not something that we just go in once and we do it. For me, it's been a life, like years of loving and reparenting that little girl inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so this thing that you're sort of looking for or wondering, I believe what you're showing me is it lives in here. It lives in these formative years. And you're also showing me, and I get the sense that the divorce wasn't the thing, like it was even happening before that, like the build up to.
Yeah. I feel like that makes sense because one of the big things that I talk about a lot is people pleasing. And I definitely know that was it's a big part of who I was. And I definitely can recall being that from a very young age. And I think it had to do with trying to keep the adults, my parents, happy, because I don't know that I remember them ever really being truly very happy together. And there was a lot of emotions and intense emotions. And I remember a lot of fighting and discord. So I think I was always the peacemaker, right? I was always the one trying to make everything okay for everybody else.
Yeah. And that sets you up from this place of not being you, right? Like always doing what other people think you should do or being a certain way for others. And so that's playing out through these patterns that you're seeing and that you're working with as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So there's work in there for you, my love. Like this is going to be a place for you to explore. And in my experience, it's very, very rich and it really does change your present day. And it's not necessarily like going back and rehashing the past or reliving the things. By nurturing and comforting that little girl like you would just a scared child or a scared animal, right? Like you really nurture that part of you. You're rewiring your brain and you're changing the past essentially, where you go back and you rewrite the memories and you parent that part of you the way that you needed. And as you build that relationship, you rewire your brain and you create a resiliency inside you that shows up differently in your life today. So there's a lot for you in that space that will open up and heal that broken heart in a way that's going to allow you to show up differently in your relationship.
Mm.
I also track for you this part with the perimenopause and things changing. There's an opportunity in there for you as well to clear. There's some stored emotions in your womb and your ovaries that you've been carrying with you.
Mm-hmm.
And this time in your life is an opportunity to let go of that energy, like work with releasing that so that as you move into menopause, it's going to be a much easier ride for you if you're not carrying this emotional, energetic structure that's formed around the physical.
Mm-hmm.
What's coming up for you?
I guess I'm just wondering, I'm like, well, how would I do that?
For the parenting side, I mean, there's a lot. There's so many ways. And just a couple ideas. With the parenting, what you were doing with going back into the memories is very, very powerful. I actually call them memory journeys. And I would travel back to those memories and put the whole experience inside a little, or not a little, but inside a bubble. And I'd sit with my younger self and just nurture her and love her and listen to her and have a conversation with her that wasn't had back in those times. And she'll guide you. She will bring you to different memories that where she needs you. And so just having a process and including her, right, in your daily life. Like when you notice, if you start tracking, you'll notice that there's physical sensations that happen in your body when certain events take place. And when you become really familiar with the way those emotions or sensations live in your body, you can also track those back to her. Because it's the unconscious part of you, right? The tracking and sort of exploring the unconscious, unhealed part and bringing that to consciousness. And the body is the vessel for that. It's the tool. Everything lives in the body. So working with your body to connect with her, to bring things to the now moment. And then as far as with your womb and the energy work is going to help you with that, and energy management techniques. There's a lot of things out there. You can just even imagine your ovaries and your uterus and connect a grounding cord to both of them, or both, one to either ovary, one to your uterus, plant those grounding cords down into Mother Earth and feel energy just draining out that isn't yours. You can then, once we feel that it's drained out, you can call in golden light to fill the space so that you're now reinforming your whole womb space with a different energy, right? A golden divine energy as opposed to the shame and the patterns of the past.
I love that.
So what else is coming up for you with this conversation?
Well, it's like I'm feeling like this, almost like a deep sadness about it. Like I'm sad that I've been holding on to this for so long and that I let it impact my life up to this current day. So I guess there'll probably be some forgiveness work around this as well.
Yeah, where does that sadness live inside you?
I'd say my heart, but it doesn't feel like my heart. It feels lower than that. It almost feels like where my solar plexus would be, like that chakra.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in meditation, I kept getting drawn back there a lot over the last couple of weeks or last few weeks.
Why do you get drawn back there? What happens?
There's something around, it almost feels like I'm not aware of the power that maybe lives there. And it's almost like I'm scared of it. There's something holding me back from it.
If you knew what that something was, what might it be?
Not sure. It feels overwhelming.
What's underneath the overwhelm?
The word that came to mind, although I don't feel this, but this is just what popped in, was bitterness. So I don't know how that's related.
So when I feel into that, when your parents divorced how was it?
It was really hard. I think I definitely thought it was my fault. I thought that, maybe I could have done something or behaved differently or didn't fight with my sister as much, right? I mean, typical things I think a lot of kids think. And then if I had not fought with my sister so much, then maybe my parents wouldn't have fought so much. But the hardest part was, I was really close to my dad, and having to only get to see him once on a weekend. I mean, initially it was like on the weekends, and then it was like just Sundays, was really, really devastating for me. And he was the one that I would always go to for emotional support because I never got that from my mother. And my dad passed away when I was 25 from pancreatic cancer. And so I feel like I've been missing that from my life since he passed. And I don't have that. I don't think I've ever found it again or allowed myself to feel it again because I'm too scared that if I find it, it's going to just go away.
I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Did you blame anybody for not being able to see your dad?
I don't know that I consciously blamed my mom, but I think there was probably a part of me that did.
And so I'm wondering if some of that bitterness might be about her.
That would make sense.
There's this really beautiful opportunity for all these places I see them like coming together, and there's this softness and there's this knowing that all these big emotions, ones that necessarily aren't the best ones to feel, right? The ones that we run from, there's this opportunity for you to run towards them, for you to recognize that they are your allies and they've been here with you all this time protecting you. And there's like this really like this third chakra where you're in, and you said it's a feeling of sadness. And rather than weaponizing that against yourself, right, by saying, oh, I should have done this sooner, why have I waited so long? It's taking that and loving it. And you're showing me like this beautiful fertile ground. Like there's so much potential and possibility that lives in this power center of yours. And it's like harvesting, right? It's taking all the sadness, the shame, the bitterness, and mulching them, using them as fertilizer is the way that it's coming in to grow. And you're showing me these beautiful roses blossoming, and peonies is actually like the image that I can see. And it's all because of these emotions that you have, that they're the very thing you need to bloom.
Beautiful.
Yeah, don't make them wrong. They're here with you. They have gifts for you. They're going to be the path out, or not even out, right? But like towards what you want. I see you like gathering them all in, just like hugging them, like, here, come here. It's okay. I've got you. Okay, come over here. Your turn. Let me see you. Come closer. Instead of like pushing them away, right? It's that idea that all of you is welcome here. And what I, see for you, right, in healing, I talk about this because we have this sort of tendency to think that there's something wrong with us and that we need to heal. We need to fix what's broken. And how I love to look at it is just we're here as a soul in a body learning how to be human. Like that's no small task.
Mm.
And I love to think of it more as like, well, we're just expanding into a greater capacity of who we can be. Like there's nothing wrong with us. We're just learning something new. And how can you expand into that with all these beautiful parts that want to come along for the ride?
Yeah.
Where would you like to go from here?
No, it's just interesting. It had like this image of like, it's almost like a Jack in the Box. They're like, we're here. Stop hiding us.
Yes.
Stop trying to stuff us in the box. We need to come out and play. Yeah. You brought up an interesting point though, because something that just made me think of it. And I know that you've mentioned this on another podcast, but people have told me in the past that I was a starseed, and I was like, I don't even know what that means and I don't understand it. But there's definitely been times in my life where I feel like I don't fit in or I don't belong. But I feel like we probably all feel that at some point. So just when you mentioned, we're all here learning how to be human, it just, I don't know, that landed really deeply for me too, because I do have this perfectionist streak in me, or I did. And it's true, we don't have to be perfect. And these little bits that we try to hide because we feel like they won't be accepted, we have to accept them first before others will as well. So it makes sense. And it lands really well and deeply within me. So thank you.
Yeah, that perfectionist tendency, I was just talking to someone about that earlier today. It is so sneaky. Like gets its way in there and makes you think that until this is just so, then I can't be okay. Or, there's so many nuances to how it shows up in our life. And it's really helpful to recognize it for when it shows up, right? Because we're so used to hearing it as our own voice and we take everything it says for truth. And it's really beautiful to find all those places that it sneaks in and then love it for being here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we can so starseed is a soul that has its origins in another star system.
Mm.
So Pleiades, Orion, Sirius, Arcturus, these are just some of the different star systems where souls are born. There's many, many, many of them. Mm-hmm. And those are just some of the popular ones. And there's also souls that have their origin incarnation on Earth. And so it's very similar to just being born in a country and having a passport for that country. And that's your country of origin. It's just, this is where your soul had its primary years of evolution, like where it was born and then where it learned. And we can also have in Sing Star systems, like as if you were born in America, but you went and lived in England for part of your life. You would still be American with your traits and your culture and your accent, but you would learn a lot of British nuances that would then be carried with you as well. So it's similar to that, where you might have studied or lived in another star system and bring those qualities and traits as well with you.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating when we get into those spaces.
How would you figure out where your soul may have come from? Like which star system? That's fascinating.
Well, you have a soul reading where the reader would go in and research your Akashic soul record. And it's all in there in the Akashic library.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, what are you taking away from our call today?
healing work is never done.
It's the reason we're here.
Of course, of course. And if we're not learning and growing and expanding, we're dead. So we might as well
Exactly.
just keep going with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, this was helpful. I feel like I kind of know where to direct my focus now for right now. So thank you so much. That was really helpful.
You're very welcome, my love.